Sky Sports have just stated that Robbie Keane wants the Spurs job, but only on a permanent basis, not as an interim appointment. The Sun newspaper are stating that Spurs want to find an interim boss until the end of the season and then are seeking to appoint former Tottenham Hotspur boss Mauricio Pochettino after the World Cup in the summer. Ange Postecoglou has fired various digs at Tottenham on the overlap on Thursday on Sky Sports. Wilson Odobert to have surgery. Gary Lineker has come out and said that Spurs should go and appoint former Chelsea boss Enzo Maresca. Team talk is stating that Spurs are interested in a former Chelsea striker, and Richarlison has thanked Thomas Frank online, only the third Spurs squad member to thank Thomas Frank publicly online. Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. This is another episode of Tottenham News where I'll be going through all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. And if you listen to this on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. So let's start by talking about Matchweek 26 in the Premier League. 4 games took place on Tuesday evening. Chelsea 2, Leeds United 2, Everton 1, Bournemouth 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle 2, and West Ham United drew 1-1 against Manchester United at the London Stadium. 5 games took place on Wednesday. Aston Villa beating Brighton 1-0 at Villa Park. Manchester City beating Fulham 3-0 at the Etihad. Nottingham Forest drawing 0-0 with Wolves. Crystal Palace 2, Burnley 3, and Liverpool won 1-0 at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland. And 1 game took place on Thursday evening, Brentford drawing 1-1 with Arsenal. Now, after match week 26, Spurs are 16th in the Premier League table. We have 29 points from 26 matches, 7 wins, 8 draws and 11 defeats. We're 2 points above 17th place Nottingham Forest, and we are only 5 points above the relegation zone where West Ham are 18th. They have 24 points. Now, on Wednesday morning, a club statement was released stating that Thomas Frank has been relieved of his duties at Spurs. The club statement says the club has taken the decision to make a change in the men's head coach position, and Thomas Frank will leave today. Thomas was appointed in June 2025, and we have been determined to give him time and support needed to build for the future together. The statement then went on to say, however, results and performances have led the board to conclude that a change at this point in the season is necessary. Throughout his time at the club, Thomas Frank has conducted himself with unwavering commitment, giving everything in his efforts to move the club forward. We would like to thank him for his contribution and wish him every success in the future. The Daily Telegraph have just reported that Tottenham are now working through a list of potential candidates to replace Thomas Frank, and on that list they include former boss Mauricio Pochettino, former Spurs star Robbie Keane, and former Marseille and Brighton boss Roberto De Zerbi. The Daily Telegraph have also stated the early expectations from sources close to Tottenham Hotspur. They are stating that it is most likely that Spurs will appoint an external candidate to replace Thomas Frank as opposed to someone internally, and it remains to be seen whether the club will appoint a permanent appointment or ask somebody to take charge for the next 12 Premier League games until the end of the season, and of course it will include at least two Champions League games as well. Now, Michael Bridge from Sky Sports has stated Roberto De Zerbi, who recently left Marseille and often linked with a return to the Premier League, is not currently looking to take a job right now as things stand, and he is having a break according to people close to him. Now, Sky Sports have also reported that Robbie Keane would be interested in taking over as Tottenham Hotspur head coach, but not on a temporary or an interim basis. Spurs are continuing to discuss the next steps internally after sacking Thomas Frank on Wednesday, with the players due back for training on Monday, as the players currently have 5 days off. Now, former Spurs striker Robbie Keane is currently in charge of Hungarian champions Ferencváros, who are in the Europa League knockout playoffs. The Sun newspaper have just reported that Spurs are attempting to find a short-term managerial appointment before seeking to reappoint USA boss Mauricio Pochettino following this summer's World Cup. Now, Team Talk are stating that Spurs have registered their interest in USA and former Chelsea forward Christian Pulisic, who is open to a return to England from AC Milan this summer. Now, Richarlison has posted on Instagram sending a message to former Tottenham Hotspur boss Thomas Frank. Richarlison said, "Thanks, mister, for everything." Now, it is worth noting that Richarlison is only the third Spurs squad member to post a thank you message to Thomas Frank after João Palhinha and Pedro Porro. They both posted their comments on Wednesday, the day Thomas Frank got the sack. Former Chelsea boss Enzo Maresca is in pole position to land the Tottenham job. This is according to Sport Italia. Now, TV pundit and former Tottenham Hotspur striker Gary Lineker on who Tottenham should appoint as the next head coach. He has come out and said, interestingly for me, someone like Enzo Maresca, if I was Tottenham, I would very much look to him, even though he is a former Chelsea boss and they don't like that kind of stuff, the Tottenham fans. But if it was me, I would try and get Enzo Maresca in at Tottenham. I knew him at Leicester and he was a really good coach. He did really well. I thought at Chelsea for a long time. The first little tricky spell he had, he was fired. The Spurs under-21s are in action on Friday evening away at Blackburn Rovers in Premier League 2. The game will be played at Lancashire FA County Ground, Leyland, 7 p.m. kickoff. And the Spurs under-18s are in action on Saturday away at Crystal Palace in the under-18 Premier League. The game will be played at the Crystal Palace Training Ground, Beckenham, 11 a.m. kickoff. And the Spurs women will be in WSL action away at Aston Villa on Sunday, 12 noon kickoff at Villa Park. On Thursday, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club released the following short statement about Wilson Odobert. We can confirm that Wilson Odobert has sustained a ruptured anterior cruciate ligament in his left knee. The 21-year-old French forward suffered the injury during the first half of our Premier League fixture against Newcastle United on Tuesday. Wilson Odobert will see a specialist next week before undergoing surgery and will then commence his rehabilitation with our medical staff. Now, on Thursday, the day after Thomas Frank got the sack, former Tottenham Hotspur boss Ange Postecoglou appeared on the overlap with Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Jill Scott and Ian Wright, answering questions all about Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And Ange Postecoglou has criticised Tottenham's transfer strategy while claiming his former side are not a big club in the wake of Thomas Frank's sacking. Frank, who was replaced by Postecoglou as head coach last summer, was sacked on Wednesday with Spurs 5 points above the Premier League relegation zone. Speaking on the Overlap Stick to Football podcast, the Australian praised the club's unbelievable facilities, but said financial limitations meant that they could not sign his main targets, such as Pedro Neto, Brian Mbeumo, Antoine Semenyo and Mark Gay in 2024. Postecoglou said, when you look at their expenditure and particularly their wage structure, they are not a big club. I saw that because we were trying to sign players and we were not in the market for those players. Ange Postecoglou covered a lot of subjects in the podcast. I would suggest going to watch it, but I will read this one out. There's no guarantees. Whichever manager you bring in, they have had world-class managers there and they haven't had success. And for what reason? Postecoglou then went on to say, Thomas is walking in, and then what's his objective? What is the club's objective? If you're going to do such a major pivot, you've got to understand there's going to be some instability there. Did Thomas know what he was walking into? I don't know. Now, my thoughts on everything in this episode. Wow, what a couple of days it has been. Thomas Frank Getting the sack the morning after us losing 2-1 at home against Newcastle. Was it the right decision? Absolutely. I'm not a person that likes to see people losing their jobs, and I'm not a person to be calling for managers to be sacked. But I tell you what, you could clearly see that this was never, ever going to work. I tried to find positives week by week, game by game under Thomas Frank, and I actually gave him a lot of credit, where due, and I felt like I was very fair with Thomas Frank, actually. But when you look at the Premier League table, and there was a moment, after that Newcastle game when I think all of us were watching the TV, the West Ham v Manchester United game, and it looked like we were only 3 points away from the relegation zone. I know it's not much better being 5 points, but I tell you what, every point at the moment is really, really important. When you look at that Premier League table, 16th, 29 points from 26 games. Of course, we have a weekend off because we're not in the FA Cup this coming weekend, but we face Arsenal next at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium Sunday week. That is going to be an extremely tough game. But we are now looking over our shoulders at Nottingham Forest and West Ham. Of course, Leeds are just above us now with 30 points from 26 games. We've got 12 games to go. And Spurs, although they have made the right decision, in my opinion, in sacking Thomas Frank, they have big decisions now to make. Do they appoint a permanent manager now, or do they go for an interim boss to take over for the next 12 Premier League games, trying to keep us in the Premier League, trying to keep our Premier League status? And of course, whoever does come in will be managing at least 2 Champions League games as well. My guess would be that Spurs would go and appoint an interim manager until the end of the season and then assess their options. And I think that there will be a lot of options in the summer for Tottenham. I know that a lot of Spurs fans are calling for Mauricio Pochettino to come back to our football club. But what I would say, and I've said this all week, particularly since the sacking of Thomas Frank, is that whoever comes in, they have to ask 1,001 questions about assurances, how are they going to be backed, and what is going to change at the football club. Because until things majorly change at the football club, we are just going to keep going round in circles, appointing manager after manager after manager, year after year, and be in this situation again, a year down the line. We need stability, we need a focus, and we need a plan, in my opinion, because you can't keep going on like this. We moved in that stadium in April 2019. We are about to appoint our 7th permanent manager, in that time. 7 in 7 years. It is absolutely crazy and absolute madness. And when you think that we've had world-class managers that haven't got us over the line, of course, Ange Postecoglou won our first trophy in 17 years, our first trophy in 41 years. We then sacked him after. And that's a whole debate. I know there'll be a lot of people saying that was the right decision. There'll be a lot of people saying that was the wrong decision. I'm just pointing out that we won a trophy and then sacked the manager. It's factual that I'm coming out with here. So, where do we go next? Let me know your opinions. Do you think that we should bring in a permanent manager now? Do you think we should bring in an interim manager now? It's interesting because, since Thomas Frank has gone out the door, people like Tim Sherwood and people like Harry Redknapp have come out and said, yeah, I'll do it. And I've no doubt there'll be a lot more people putting their name forward. But, the Spurs players at the moment, they have a couple of days off. And they will be preparing for the game from Monday. So you would hope that a decision is made over, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and, Spurs bring somebody in and have a plan. And that is my biggest thing, that I just hope that Spurs have a plan and they know exactly what they are doing and, be focused on these next 12 games, certainly in the Premier League, for survival in the Premier League, first of all. Sky reporting that Robbie Keane wants the job, but he doesn't want it as an interim. Of course, he's doing a great job in Hungary at the moment, at Ferencváros, and why would he leave his job now? I suppose that if he thought that he was going to get the Spurs job, that one would be in the summer. I know a lot of people are calling for Mauricio Pochettino. We've heard his name being sung at the 2 most recent games, Manchester United away at Old Trafford, and then, of course, during the game in front of Thomas Frank against Newcastle. Ange Postecoglou has fired various digs at Tottenham on the overlap. I don't want to ruin it for the people that haven't seen it, and I don't think there's a lot of people who haven't actually not seen it, because they have hit over 1 million views, and I think that was the quickest million views that they've ever had on a video. I think that it was absolute box office, really. People watching Ange Postecoglou, because the timing of him doing that podcast of Thomas Frank getting the sack, and then just moments later they're sitting down with Ange Postecoglou asking him all of these Tottenham questions. Now, and I've seen a lot of people absolutely agreeing with everything Ange said. I've seen a lot of people saying that he's fired a lot of digs, and he shouldn't have done, and he hasn't taken responsibility for those 22 league defeats or finishing 17th in the Premier League table. I tell you what, I'm very respectful of Ange Postecoglou winning that trophy for us. And when he come out and said what he did, and I think that a lot of us guessed it already, he wanted a certain calibre of player after that first season, after finishing 5th in the Premier League in that first season. He wanted a certain calibre of player. The players that was on his list there, Neto, the likes of Mark Gay, Semenyo, etc. These are players that Spurs should be bringing in. But he has, confirmed yet again that Spurs were not in the market for those types of players, because we did not want to pay the wages for these players. And we, as Spurs fans, have been extremely frustrated over the years under multiple different managers, where we have known that we have not wanted to pay the wages for these top players, and essentially we don't get the players. And with respect, Ange Postecoglou said that we've got 3 teenagers in, and we got Dominic Solanke in, and he even said, you're not going to go from 5th to 4th to 3rd, because Champions League football was very important, and Spurs didn't have the money available to, to pay the wages or pay the fees, because we didn't have Champions League football. But how often have we all felt that we have been 1, 2, 3, or more players away from achieving something special and really challenging? And, I go back to Mauricio Pochettino. People think that Pochettino, and I say some people think that Pochettino is just going to come in, click his fingers, and everything's going to be great. Unless Spurs really change the way that they do things and, keep repeating errors and mistakes and making poor decisions, nothing is going to change, no matter who you bring in. So I just hope that Spurs really get their act together, and if this new structure, if this board and this ownership, the owners, if they want to take this football club forward, they really need to be focused this summer and go big in the transfer market as well, and show real ambition. And I think that starts with the manager as well. Spurs should always have a world-class manager, and we should always be appointing the best manager possible out there. And let's see what happens next. Let's see what decisions that they do make. But I just hope that they really do get it right in the next couple of days, if it is an interim appointment, and then of course the right decision in the summer as well. But I've quite often said in every transfer window that Spurs need to do more. And, if we want to be competing on all fronts, and that is a saying that they used at the start of this season, which Ange Postecoglou, I might add, found very, very odd, because even he said the words that I said a couple of weeks ago on various media interviews. I actually come out and said, to dare is to do. That is our club motto, and I'm not seeing much daring, and I'm not seeing much doing at the moment. And Ange Postecoglou pretty much said exactly the same thing in that overlap interview, and I agree with him in that regard. Wilson Odobert to have surgery. I tell you what, Spurs are absolutely cursed when it comes to injuries. And when it comes to long-term injuries, this is a big blow again to whoever does come in, because yes, we do have some good players. I think that whoever does come in as well, they need to just instill a little bit of confidence into this squad, because I think some of the players look absolutely drained, if I'm honest. But this injury record at Tottenham right now is absolutely abysmal, atrocious. And, the medical staff, that is another area where we need to look at as a football club yet again. There are so many different areas where Spurs need to look at, focus on, concentrate on, and there is a lot of work to do. Whoever is responsible for all of these things, there is a lot of work to do. And, I just hope that Spurs move in the right direction because, as I said, we can't keep going on like this. The injury record as well at Spurs for the last couple of years, particularly under Ange Postecoglou, Thomas Frank, the injury record is absolutely abysmal. Richarlison is only the third player to come out and thank or send a message to Thomas Frank. I think that is very, very telling. A number of the journalists that cover Tottenham on a regular basis, reliable journalists I might add, they come out with a number of stories in the past couple of days stating that the players were getting lectured by Thomas Frank. He kept mentioning Arsenal all the time. The players were fed up. You could actually see it. I've been saying this in the past couple of months. The body language of the players simply didn't look right. They looked fed up. And I felt that even that Newcastle game, midweek on Tuesday, that the players, even walking into that stadium, they looked beat already. They looked depressed. They look unhappy. And hopefully, whoever comes in now gives them a little bit of freshness, give them a little bit of renewed energy and put confidence back into some of these players and start playing the ball forward and start worrying about us rather than the opposition. And whoever does set us up, I just hope that he is tactically well and play the Tottenham way again and not keep setting us up to, not lose games, rather than go out and to dare is to do and trying to win and, be on the front foot and start games extremely well and get that fan base reunited yet again, because there were a lot of empty seats on Tuesday as well. And that was very, very telling. But yeah, I think that a lot of these players were fed up with Thomas Frank, and I think that is, you can publicly see that only João Palhinha, Pedro Porro, and Richarlison are the only three to comment so far. Richarlison on the Thursday, and on the day of the sacking, Palhinha and Pedro Porro. And another thing, actually, there were reports going around, that Thomas Frank had told Tottenham staff that he felt that there was only one player in the Tottenham Hotspur squad that could play at an elite level at elite European clubs. And he actually said that was Pedro Porro. So very interesting what he said there. Lots of other reports about, links to managers. Enzo Maresca, reports in Italy are stating that he is in pole position to get this job. I wouldn't go that far at the moment. I think that Tottenham are assessing all options at the moment, and I don't think any decisions have been made, although a decision does need to be made in the very, very near future, because the Arsenal game, is coming round thick and fast. And, of course, whoever does come in is going to need to prepare for the other games as well. But just on Enzo Maresca, I'll tell you what, he is a quality manager. There are a lot of quality managers out there at the moment. I know a lot of people are saying about Pochettino. Someone who does remind me of Pochettino a lot, and that is Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth. I think that he would be a really good shout. The type of football that he plays, I think that Tottenham fans would absolutely entertain that and would really enjoy that. Enzo Maresca did a fantastic job at Leicester, did a fantastic job at Chelsea with the amount of trophies that he won as well. And it'd be interesting because all of these names at the moment, and we're in this position again as a Spurs fan base, that a name gets put up on social media, or, a media outlet will say Spurs are interested in this manager. You get half the fan base absolutely agreeing, thinking it's all fantastic, and then the other half are really unhappy and saying, no, not a chance of them. So it's going to be really interesting. So please do put your comments in the comment section below about who you would like to see come in as either an interim boss until the end of the season or a permanent boss now. Or is it a permanent boss in the summer for you? Let me know what your thoughts are. And lastly, Team Talk have stated that Spurs are interested in former Chelsea striker Christian Pulisic. This is going to be interesting to see what Spurs do in the summer market. I just hope that Spurs really do go big. And another thing that Ange Postecoglou said that I've been saying for years, And I said this on Sky Sports only last week as well, that Spurs, we don't go out and sign players where you go, wow, these are world-class players. These are world-class signings. And Ange Postecoglou pretty much said exactly the same thing on the overlap. Spurs need to go out and show real ambition, go big in the summer if we want any chance of being the club that we should be and have been, during those Pochettino years, really daring, really doing, and really going for it, and trying to win and compete for top honours. Spurs have come out and said a number of times this season, Vinay Venkatesham, Johan Langer, Thomas Frank, they've all said that we want to be competing on all fronts. We are a million miles away from that right now, so there is a lot of work to do for this board and for these owners. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. Have a great weekend. Keep smiling and I'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.